Closing time. All right, guys, I think we can all agree I'm not a great singer, so let's stick to real estate. What does closing day look like? Stick with me and we'll show you.
You better get fired up.
Happy Monday, guys. Welcome to What's Hot. We're here every single Monday at 11 o'clock, and where we talk about the hottest things in real estate. And today we're going to talk about what closing day looks like. Closing day is a blast, man. Everybody enjoy, well, I shouldn't say everybody, but the majority of people enjoy closing day because you're either selling a property and hopefully bringing home some cash, man. That's the goal. Or you're buying a property and holy smokes, we just reached a major milestone, whether it's a secondary property, that's your vacation home, it's an investment property, and now you're going to be bringing up that cash, or it's your primary house and you get to live there with you and your family, which is great, right? Either way, it's a phenomenal day for everybody involved. So let's talk about what it looks like. Typically, it's different for everybody in most situations. So early in the day, I like to get my final walkthrough done. Now, you can do it the day before. You can honestly do it anytime you want, but I like to do it the morning of. Why? Because the goal of a final walkthrough is for the buyers to come through with their agent and say, okay, is this property in the same condition it was in at the time that we did the inspection, at the time that we put the offer in? Okay. Plus, any negotiated repairs or replacements, have they been done? Is all of the personal property that we agreed to in the offer still here? Is there additional stuff here that we don't want here, or have they removed everything else? Those are the questions that you're trying to ask yourself, right? So typically when I go around a final walkthrough, I'm going to go check all the, anything that has water coming out of it. So I'm flushing the toilets, I'm turning on the showers, turning on the bathtubs, I'm turning on all the sinks to make sure that they're flowing well. I'm looking underneath after maybe 10, 20 seconds of flowing water to see if I have any leaks under there. I'm turning the stove on and touching the tops to see if it gets hot. Opening the fridge and the freezer, sticking my hands in. Is it cool, right? I want to turn the microwave on for a second, hit that go button just to see if it gets going. I'm looking at the walls and the windows for holes and cracks. I'm looking for anything I can to make sure that if there's something wrong with the home that was not wrong with it when we did the inspection, we've got a lot of different solutions to fix those problems. Once we close, it gets a little more challenging, right? We've got some leverage before we sign. We lose our leverage. We don't lose all of it, but we lose a lot of our leverage once we sign. So you want to figure those things out. Now, you get done with the final walkthrough, whether it's the day before or the morning of, you're going to head to closing. You don't have to head to closing. You can sign with a mobile notary. I've got a lot of people who buy homes that they've never even seen, and they're in, New Jersey, New York, California, wherever, and they go look at the home with me in a video, or maybe I send them some photos. They say, great, I'll take it. The final walkthrough is just me walking through, making sure everything looks good. And then they've already kind of signed maybe a day, 2-3 days beforehand. They're good to go. Sellers go, they do their own closing day. And theirs also could be in a different area. I've had a lot of people who sell a property here in Florida and they move to, pick your place, let's say Tennessee, and they're buying a home in Tennessee. So they'll meet with a mobile notary to close on their Florida property in Tennessee. And then immediately after that, they go to their closing and on the same day in a lot of cases, and purchase their new home in Tennessee. So you don't have to physically be there at closing. The cost to get a mobile closer is usually an extra $100, $200, $300. It's nothing, dramatically higher than what you're going to pay anyway. It creates a lot of convenience for people. It's certainly worth it if that's the position that you're in. But most people, I would say 80, 90% of people are physically going to a closing office. Now, you can have a title closer, which is what we predominantly use down here in Florida, or you can have an attorney. Both can close on the day of closing for you, right? We don't see a lot of attorneys here. I would guess that's maybe 10, 15% of the closings. But up in New York, up in New Jersey, that, to my knowledge, I'm not a pro up there. I think it's 100% of their closings that they're using attorneys instead of title closers. It's just a different breed down here. Now, we get a lot of people from the Northeast. So typically when they come down here, they're a little confused. They got some questions. Where's the attorney? What's going on? What's a title closer? So we just have to explain it's a little different down here. But they're doing the same exact thing, right? Now, I'm going to share this too because I know a lot of the people we've got down here from the Northeast. I do not comprehend contracts up in the Northeast. I would love for an intelligent New York, New Jersey, real estate agent or somebody who's bought and sold a lot of properties to explain this to me. I've had contingencies where the buyer is coming from New York or New Jersey, and they're going to buy this home, my listing, right? I've got the sellers. I'm working with the sellers. They're going to buy the listing contingent upon the sale up in New York. Well, in Florida, when you've got a closing day, say it's February 1st, that's the closing date. It's a contractual date. If the buyer doesn't hit that date, they could lose their deposit. They could be sued for specific performance. They could have a lot of things that go wrong for them. Same with the seller. That's a contractual date for them. They've got to hit it. Up in New York, it is not a contractual date. And I've learned this a couple times when I get these contingencies, it'll have a date on there, but it rarely closes on that date. And I've asked the agent, well, how do you know when it's going to close? When the lawyers get together, they decide to have lunch one day and they kind of crunch it out and they tell us, hey, in 2 weeks, we're going to close. That's when we know we're closing. Like, oh my gosh, there's no way you could hire a moving truck within 2 weeks down here. There's no way you could coordinate all the different things that you've got to do and have that all done in a week or two. In a lot of different cases, I don't comprehend it. But again, I'm not the pro, right? I would love to hear from a pro up in New York. How the heck do you do that? I don't understand that. But you need to know that down here because your closing date is contractual down here. You have to close on that day. So I've had to educate some people from the Northeast that that's not a floating date. That's a must date. So if you've got a floating date up north, we got to talk about a strategy to make sure you're protected down here, right? So on closing day, you're going to physically go in and sign. What does signing look like? If you're a seller, it's really quick and easy. It's literally like 15 minutes. You sign a few things, everybody's happy, right? As a buyer, it's a little bit different. If you're cash, it's pretty simple and easy, just like the sellers, maybe 15, 20 minutes. But if you've got a loan, typically that closing is going to be closer to an hour because your packet of papers goes from this thick to about that thick. It's a monster, man. You might get an inch and a half of paperwork. It's a lot. So that whole closing, if you've got a loan involved, is going to be you flipping through all this paperwork and you've got a closer there. This is all that closer does. They know what every single form is. They quickly go through it. They know how to be efficient in explaining everything to you. Sign here, initial here, sign here, initial here. And they're really good at rotating it between the husband and the wife and keeping it all in order. They got it. They've done it a million times. But you're going to sign that thick old packet. And then what they're going to do is they're going to go make copies of everything. They're going to bring you, in most cases, this beautiful, almost like a vinyl envelope, and they're going to put it in there, and it's usually got Velcro or some little clasp. And now you got all your documents in one beautiful little place. Okay. So you can take that. I highly recommend you store it somewhere and keep it. Even as a homeowner, I've had to go back a couple of times, pull out some of those documents for different reasons. You're going to want those. Same as a seller. You're going to get those same documents in your folder, right? Once that's done, we're just waiting for funding. And it depends. Sometimes funding's already been sent. It's good to go. And checks are cut immediately, right? The seller gets their check. The buyer sometimes get a check. I had a buyer the other day who had paid a certain amount of money. Costs came in a little bit different in a good way, right? They were lower. So there was a check cut to that buyer. So you'll get checks if there is any types of overages, or as a seller, you're getting your profit. If you're short, you can write a check. Now, sometimes they're going to ask you for a cashier's check or a money order. You'll typically know that 3-4 days before you're actually going to go to closing, so you can go get it. In some cases, if it's a small amount, maybe $1,000 or less, they'll allow you to write a personal check. It really depends on the closer. It's all up to whatever they want to do and whatever their rules are. Those are the rules that you got to adhere to. But that whole thing, again, if you're cash or a seller, you're looking at 15, 20 minutes. If you're a funded buyer, you're probably looking at roughly an hour, right? Give or take 10, 15 minutes. So it's really not that bad. Once that funding comes through, which if you close at 10 a.m. and funding takes a few hours, maybe you haven't sent the wire yet, so now you start sending the wire, takes some time, whatever. That can be a little bit challenging timeline-wise. Maybe it doesn't close for a couple hours. Well, that means the buyers aren't going to get the keys. In most cases, it's all negotiable between the seller and the buyer. And the seller might not get their check. So that's why it's so important to get that funding going early, right? But assuming you get the funding going and it's already there by closing, checks are cut, keys are handed over. Typically, although it's different with every situation, all the other extras, right? Keys to the shed, the garage door opener, all the documents that tell you, here's the warranty for the microwave, or this is how to work the dishwasher, anything like that. Sometimes too, really great sellers will leave like a list of instructions. Here's all the things that you may not know about the home that'll be helpful. All of that typically is not brought to closing, although it can be. it's usually left on the kitchen counter, right? So when you get there, you've got all that stuff just laying out in the counter. Wink, wink. There's a great idea for you as a seller. Have that stuff ready, man. People love it. And when you go to buy that next home and your seller has done it, you're going to appreciate it too. That's really it. You've already worked to get all your utilities turned on. Now you own the home, so you can do whatever you want with it. You can move all your stuff in, not move your stuff in, come in a week, come in that day. You can do whatever you want because at that point, it's your home. That's it. It's a pretty simple, basic closing day. It's easy, but it's a lot of fun because it's a big change in your life. If you're a seller, you're losing an asset that has served you for probably several years. And it's probably 6, 7 figures of an asset that you're selling. And you're probably getting a pretty sizable check. There's a lot of emotions going on right there. If you're getting that check, there's a lot of fun planning. What are we going to do with all this money? That's a great problem, right? If you're a buyer, man, you just changed your life. Maybe you're building a new family there, or maybe you've got 3 kids and you've only got a 3-bed home. So you've got to stack a couple kids in one bedroom. Now you've got a 4 or 5-bed home. Man, this is great. Your life has just changed. So it's huge if you're in either one of those positions. So, guys, really enjoy the day. Have a good time. Hopefully, you've got a great realtor you trust who can take care of all those little details. I should say a realtor and a title closer. It takes a village, but really just enjoy your day. I highly recommend taking a photo of you in front of your house, on your property, wherever you think the best photo is. Take it on day one. It doesn't matter if your hair and makeup are done. Nobody cares. This photo is for you. I've never met a person who doesn't greatly appreciate that photo for years to come. Sometimes, if I remember, I like to send those photos, if I get one, I like to send those photos framed to my buyer clients. It just means the world to them. And even as a seller, sometimes, especially if that house had been in your family for decades, it's really cool to get one last great photo framed and sent to them. If your realtor's not doing that, just do it yourself. It costs you $20 to go get a frame. You will love that photo for the rest of your life. So there you guys go. There's closing day. If you've got anything that you'd like to talk about in a future What's Hot episode, Mondays at 11 o'clock, feel free to write it in the comments or send me a DM over Facebook, and we're happy to do that. Thanks for joining me, and we'll see you next Monday. Take care, guys.